Hey guys, how's it going? Hey, I just thought I'd do part two of my pedalboard video that I did before. But today I just want to actually play through some of the sounds, some of the effects on my pedalboard and show you how I use them in a live context, especially at church on a Sunday doing a worship set, how I use the overdrives and the reverb and the different pedals on the board. So let me quickly take you through it. And just so you know, I do use a volume pedal as well, but that's at the church at the moment, so I don't have it linked up, but I use that for swells and that kind of thing. So there will be normally a volume pedal that I use live on a Sunday. So yeah, let's go through it. The tuner, nothing fancy there. It's a Japanese-made tuner that tunes the guitar. Here's the compressor. Now what I'll do, I'll take it off. I'll show you the tone of my amp at the moment, and I'll show you the compressor. So there's the amp. Now what I normally try to do is on a Sunday is to run the amp. It's a tube amp that I use on a Sunday, a little Fender Blues Junior. Run the gain a little bit hotter so the amp starts to break up a tiny bit. Then you get the most out of the tubes, and the best tone often comes out of a tube amp when you just run it on the edge of breakup, which means it's just starting to just slightly get that crunchy kind of tone. I can't really run the amp here today like that, otherwise the neighbors will kill me. So it's pretty clean today. But what I do is with the compressor, this compressor is a one control lemon yellow compressor, and it has a gain and a level. And I'll run them a little bit harder than the volume of the amp. And it just pushes the amp a little bit. So that's with the compressor on, and this is with it off. Okay, so it sounds a lot more lively once you put the compressor on. Nice sustain. It just adds a nice smoothness. It smooths out the notes and everything, and adds a nice bit of sweet sustain to a lot of the chords. So I will leave the compressor on. The ratio or the compression level is around 11 o'clock there, so not too high. I don't like it really squishy, but I leave that on all the time. Okay, so that's the compressor. And then my first stage drive is the Greer Amps Lightspeed, and I typically run the drive on about 11 o'clock, and it's very transparent. You can almost use it, or you can use it as like a boost, a transparent boost. But I just like to use it just as my first stage drive, just to give it a little bit of grit. So I play it without it. Excuse my feet, by the way. And then okay, I'll take the delay off though. So when you dig in, you just get that nice breakup kind of a sound. With it off. So just that little bit of kind of crunch to it. I like to run it like that. And then my second stage drive is the Sick As by Bondi Effects. I typically run it, the gain higher, because it's my second stage drive. I will run the gain around 3 o'clock, because this one is already doing a great job with the lighter kind of drive. And then I run this hotter, although this is a great clean boost as well. It's very transparent in the lower gain settings, but I also like the gain up a little bit. So I run around 3 o'clock, or sometimes full, bass and treble around just after 12 o'clock. I put it on the lower toggle switch. It has 2 toggle switches. The lower one is a little bit, has a bit more clarity to it. So that's gonna sound like that's got a nice bit of gain to it. So if I compare it with the light speed, and then so as songs build up, especially into choruses and stuff like that, I'll put that on. So, you know, the light speed is nice. That's that. And then if I put the sick as on, the next level. And then my next stage is the Blue Boy, and what I do is I run it, the gain is around 11 o'clock, and I will stack it together. In other words, I'll run these two together for more like solo lead lines and things like that. So and it just gives a ton more sustain and a little bit more thickness. So if I take it off and just have the sick as, and then I put this one on, and then the EQ is, I basically run it as a volume boost, so it'll just kick a little bit of extra volume so it cuts through the mix if I have to do a lead line or a solo, and that will just give me a little bit more just a little bit more volume to kind of kick through the mix. So that's how I use those guys. Now let me just show you like a song example of a couple of song examples of how I use these pedals. Just a classic one that most people will know, Oceans by Hillsong. Let's put some reverb on. So, for example, you know the start of the song and that classic, let me see if I can get the tempo right. What I would typically do with that is actually not often. I will leave this on a lot of the time because it's just a slight bit of breakup, and when you play softly, it doesn't really sound overdriven. It sounds pretty clear. But if you dig in a little bit, it will give you, you know, that grit. So when you just play softly like that. It just has a slight edge to it. This is with it off. Or I might start the first part, the quiet part of the song like that, and the second time I'll kick that on, just a bit of edge. Okay, and then definitely when they go into that part, you can just hear that nice little break up, and it gives it that kind of edginess to that part. And often with little lines like that, I will run the reverb. So here's my new neighbor Seraphim reverb. I don't use the shimmer a lot in worship stuff. I will run the reverb around the mix and the depth around 12 to 1 o'clock, just to give it that tiny bit of kind of presence. So if I turn it off, sounds cool, and that's with the delay on, obviously. Turn it on, it just gives... Okay, just that you can hear that reverb kind of ringing out a little bit. So that's typically how I run. I will often have the reverb on around 12 or 1 o'clock mix and depth for those quieter parts of songs. And then as the song builds and I put more drive on, I will often turn it off so it doesn't get too muddy in the mix. So yeah, that's how I will run the reverb. So yeah, song like Oceans, I will use this light drive for those parts of the song, and then I will kick on this, you know, once it gets into the bridge, Spirit Lead Me, and it gets bigger and the drums get bigger, you know. And it gets bigger and and then I would kick on this. There's a little kind of interlude, and I kind of do a little solo. I kick on this and maybe the EQ pedal for that little interlude. Okay, that's kind of what I play in the interlude. So I run those together for a little bit of a lead tone, and like I said, probably kick that one on too to cut through the mix. Yeah, so that's how I'd use them in a song like Oceans. By the way, I forgot to mention the chorus pedal, but I don't use that a lot, so it's not connected at the moment, so I won't really talk much about that one. Another song, let me go through another example of how I'd use these pedals. A song called Praises by Bethel, Josh Baldwin and Bethel. Praises. This song is in the key of B. And it has this little... So that's the little riff at the start of the song. I normally leave the light speed, obviously the compressor's always on, leave the light speed on for just that tiny bit of grit, and gives a little bit of a sparkle to the tone as well. And then obviously the delay, I have all the presets, as you can see, Praises, that's the beauty of the timeline. And the reverb on just to give that little bit of presence to that riff at the start of the song. And it sounds, yeah, I think it sounds sweet. Oops, sorry, that doesn't sound sweet. Okay, and then as the chorus comes in, there's this little riff, and I would kick on the second stage drive. Okay, for that Be Lifted Up, if you know the song Be Lifted Up, Be Lifted Higher, there's that little riff in there. I kick on the second stage drive, give it a bit more power. And then as the chorus gets much bigger, there is a little kind of guitar interlude in there. But the second time through the chorus, I'll probably kick these on together, give it even a bigger. Okay, and that's the way that I would use these pedals in a song like that. So yeah, and then in terms of the timeline and the delays, I've got the MXR carbon copy delay as well. Obviously I use the timeline to save all the presets, praises, brave, your great name, beautiful name, all saved in there. That's the beauty of the timeline. I see I've got the tape setting there. I often use the tape setting. The digital setting, if I use the digital setting, I'll often filter out some of the, just make it a little bit warmer sounding, turn the filter up a little bit, warm it up a little bit. Repeats and mix around 12 o'clock depending on the song. If you want a nice bouncy dotted 8, I'll turn the mix up a little bit more. But around 12 o'clock is a good place to start. And what I do, the very bank 0, is I just have a general dotted 8th delay, and then I can tap in the tempo, and then B is just a general quarter note. So if I don't have a song saved in there, I automatically can go to bank 0, and I've got a dotted 8th and tap in the tempo, and I've got a quarter note, and I can tap in the tempo as well for whatever song I'm going to play. So yeah, that's kind of how I use the timeline and the settings. Like I said, mostly digital, debucket or analog delay or tape delay, and just warm them up a little bit. Let me just show you something with the tape delay. Okay, let's have a look at this. So I will often warm it up a little bit like that. Okay, and what you can also do with the tape delay is if you go into parameters, tape speed, okay, low end, I like a little bit more low end, so it sounds low end in there, so it sounds a little bit more natural. The repeats sound a little bit more natural, so I kick the low end in more. Okay, so there's a bit of tape delay for you. All right, so just going on to the reverbs and swells and that kind of thing. Let me just show you what I'll do with that typically. And with the analog delay, often I just use it for ambient. So I'll show you what it is. So I turn the mix and the regen up a little bit, so it keeps going, and then I will use it with the delay, with my timeline, and then for swells, I will turn the reverb up to around mix and depth around 3 o'clock. And sometimes I put these two on if I want a big swell sound, and then use the volume pedal normally and get this. Okay, so sometimes it's too much. You don't always want that much kind of ambience. But if you want a lot of ambience, that's what I do. I run 2 delays together with the analog and the timeline, and turn the mix and the depth on the reverb up to around 3 o'clock. And then if it's a bigger moment and you want kind of a bit more epic sort of swells, I put the sick as overdrive on, and and then you get that kind of a sound. So there it is. That's pretty much how I use these pedals every weekend. So I hope that's helpful for you guys if you're learning to use pedals and learning, how do I kind of use them in a worship context on a Sunday and that kind of thing. That's what I do. That's the gear that I have. That's what works for me. You got to find out what works with your gear. But yeah, I hope that helps you guys. God bless. Just enjoy it. And like I said, I often say, just use it to be a blessing to your church and to your people, and use it, as an act of worship to God. Make a beautiful sound in worship using all of this gear. So God bless you guys. I hope that helps, and I'll see you next time.